Welcome to the Dr. Hockey Podcast. I'm Dr. Jay Calvert, and we are here again for a big evening talking about hockey. I have with me, of course, my faithful and very soon to be painful to my neck co-host, Jason Berkeley, who promised to crack my neck like a sausage. Is that correct, Jason?
That's a technical medical term, yes.
All right, so I'm having a little bit of wincing after some hard workouts this weekend, and Jason saw me moving and said, I'm going to crack your neck like a sausage.
And by the way, I'm glad you called me faithful, and now I feel like I'm a dog now, so.
Yes. Well, that was the intent. And we have a very special guest tonight, Arash Markazi,
Yes.
who is here from ESPN to talk some hockey. We've got to talk a little bit about USC and some problems there. And Arash, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
We're really excited you could come in. You've been on once before,
Yes.
and we were talking about the big year for the Golden Knights then. And this year, a little bit more sobering for the Golden Knights, would you say?
Yeah, and I think this is sort of what people expected. I mean, like that first season was it came out of nowhere. They were the expansion team. No one had a lot of expectation for the team. And when they began the season the way that they did, people were like, listen, the community's been through so much. At least like they're beginning the season strong. We know they're going to fade. But it just went. They won the Western Conference. They went to the Stanley Cup Final, won Game 1. They didn't close out the season the way that they would have liked. But, the thing is, like, they brought back the same core for the most part. So the expectation is that they're going to, come back and compete for a playoff spot. But listen, this is not the same team as they were last season.
It's really not.
But actually on paper, though.
On paper, yeah.
You think they were better.
Mm-hmm.
On paper.
But that's the key, is on paper. I mean, as we've been talking about, James Neal seemed to be the linchpin for that team. And when you take that emotional, intangible ingredient away from a team, as they did with Stasny over in St. Louis when he went over to Winnipeg, it detracts not just from the skill level, but then also that emotional factor. That's something that you can't trade for that. You can't plan for that either. And that's.
I think here was a unique thing about that team too, is like they all had a chip on their shoulder. The
Right.
coach had a chip on the shoulder. The GM had a chip on his shoulder. Not a single guy on that roster did not have a chip on his shoulder. And when you have the success that they did, it's hard to kind of keep that chip and keep that kind of like, well I got to show them. But basically, every game that they played last season, there was a player that was left unprotected by that.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really like every game that they played was like, listen, we're playing for this guy, or we're playing for Niels tonight, or we're playing for Marc-Andre Fleury tonight, we're playing for someone tonight. And when you have that success, and then not only that, when you are the defending Western Conference champions, who listen, let's just be real. A lot of people didn't like that story. It was a fun story for a while, but if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I mean, that was not a feel-good story for you. Like, that was not a story that you would have liked. So now they become the team that you want to beat.
Oh, yeah.
And so the chip is gone, the Cinderella story is gone, and they come back to reality as sort of like that's what they are.
Is it comparable in baseball to a pitching staff or a pitcher that has great stuff one year because they don't know what to expect in the next year? Now the whole league knows how to hit them.
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, listen, this was a totally new team, so you knew how certain guys played, but you didn't know how they played as a team, and that team did change a lot during the course of the season. So there wasn't like, okay, here's how they play and whatnot. And so not only that, so when you bring back the same group, like we know how they play. We know the lines that they like to roll out. We know the style that they like to play. So there's no surprises. And not only is there no surprises, that's a team that you want to.
Oh, yeah, everybody's got
Yeah.
it for them.
So
For sure.
So, okay, aside from the changes then, who's the real team? Is it last year's team or is it this year's team? Is what the expectations should have been?
No, I do think it's a combination of both. To your point, like if a pitcher has a good season, I'm not going to take away his season. But what I'm going to say is like maybe he's not that consistently great. Like they're not Detroit back in the day where they were always competing, or Pittsburgh. Maybe. Listen, I mean, kudos to them. I mean, basically, every guy had a career season. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Bill Carlson is not Wild Bill Carlson. I mean, he was like a fan favorite. Let's see, before they give him a big contract, let's see if he can produce that kind of season. I mean, because every guy had a career year. You're not going to get that on a consistent. I mean, if you get that for the next 2 or 3 years, maybe. But generally speaking, if you've been playing in this league for 5 years and you've spiked and had a career year. Hard to stay there.
Well, and we made the comment earlier, maybe it was when I had Kevin Connolly and we were talking to Joe Maloof. I said they were 7-1 at the time, and Joe came in and I said, Joe, your guys are playing like it's playoff hockey every night. And I said, my only concern is that they're going to run out of steam. They never did.
Yeah.
Not only did they not run out of steam, they went to the Stanley Cup final. They're out of steam now.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. With that first half of the season, I mean, they were playing with so much, it wasn't just for the team, right? So I mentioned the chip on the shoulder, but what that community went through, they were playing for so much more than that.
Yes.
And I go back to that first home game that they had, which I don't want to use the word playoff atmosphere because it certainly wasn't that, but you were just playing for something more than the team. And so not only were they practicing during the course of the week, they were going out to talk to the community and doing things like that. So you were playing for the city of Las Vegas, and they really did a good job of making them each game feel important because of like that pregame show. People saw it during the course of the playoffs, but they actually did that during the course of the season. Not game one so much, but games 2 through whatever. I mean, they did that basically every night. So it felt like a playoff game.
Yeah.
The Vegas flu thing is a real thing. I'm not going to discount that, and I think teams have learned to adjust to that, whether it's where they stay or rules you put into place. But that is a thing. That first work trip to Vegas is a real thing where I'm not going to go to sleep by night. I'm going to go wherever. I'm going to enjoy myself. And then when it becomes part of the routine, it's like, listen, I did Vegas last year. I don't need to go to the same place again.
Right, and that is we thought that would be a factor.
There's only so many times.
I mean,
There's only so many times you can eat $2.99 steak and eggs.
by the way, that's not where they were going.
That's
They were
the
not going to the
That's your bad.
$2.99 steak place up. But I knew that they were going to be a good home team, but then we found out during the course of the season, like, they were just as good on the road. That was the amazing thing about this team.
They did. They really killed it. But this year, it is a different team, and they're playing well enough. They're getting there now, but Fleury's having a lot more trouble. People weren't gunning for him. They definitely have. They are now a real NHL team. So coming up next year, there's another expansion. There's going to be a team in Seattle.
That's right.
There's going to be an expansion draft in June, 2 weeks after the playoffs. What's that going to do to
Can
the
you
NHL?
imagine though being a guy on, say, team A, B, or C, you get left unprotected, you end up in Vegas. Then there's another expansion draft, you're the same guy in Vegas, you're left unprotected
Guys
again.
like that, that's right.
There will be guys like
I know
that.
that,
Sure.
it's gonna be somebody then who,
You can't protect everybody.
what kind of luck is that?
Dude, that's part of the
But
business.
I feel bad that the GM and coach of that team is going to say, like, can you be the next Vegas Golden? I mean, that is such a hard thing
Well,
to
that's
do.
a tough
act to
It's
follow.
a lofty thing. But the rules will be the same. And it's really
There you go.
kind of up to the GM. I mean, listen, credit to George McPhee for putting that team together.
Unbelievable.
I mean, he hit on every one of those picks for the most part. And so it's going to be up to the GM to kind of put together a team in place that he feels can fit and gel and work together. And listen, you can only do the best as you can, but I mean, it's amazing. I wrote the story, but I mean, you go down that expansion draft. I mean, he really did hit on every single one. I mean, like, they all contributed, and if they
Absolutely.
didn't, it's because they got hurt or something.
I mean, they were in just above the Kings as far as their record, and all of a sudden they've skyrocketed to third place in the division. So they definitely, made a change in whatever
Yeah.
they're doing and has corrected some things. So, listen, there's still a lot more hockey to play. But we're at the first furlong of Thanksgiving, which, as you know, is the marker where they say teams that are in playoff contention right now are more than likely, I think it's like 85 or 90% likely to be in playoff contention come April, May. So,
I wonder if that's gonna be true this year. I don't think
I don't
that's
think,
gonna be the case.
and here's why I think that this theory might not be as valid as it used to be 10, 15 years ago, is because of the cap. We're in the cap era.
Yeah,
right.
There's so much more parity. Any team can go on a 10-game run and suddenly go from 6th place or 7th place in the division to 2nd or 1st. It can happen that quickly.
Well, and look at even the teams that are.
And vice versa.
Yeah,
Vice versa.
and that's right, because teams can
The
tank.
Rangers are a perfect example. They were horrible,
Absolutely.
and all of a sudden they're in 2nd, 3rd place. It's like, wait, where did they come from? Out of nowhere.
And I won't put them past them to not make the playoffs, by the way. I mean, they are playing out of their head. They've got their coach, I really like their coach. This guy Quinn for the Rangers.
Yeah.
He, they lost the game to Washington over the weekend. They were up 2-0, and then Washington comes back, Mia Khalifa, to win the game 5-3. And at the press conference, Quinn says, after the first period, we were up 2-0. I said, if you guys want to win this game, you got to do two things. You got to skate and you got to hit people. He goes, and we did none of that in the second and third period.
Well, there you go.
And he knows what it takes. This guy, I think, is a real coach, and I'm pretty excited for the Rangers from that standpoint. However, do they have what it takes to get to the playoffs and be truly a playoff contender? I'm not sure at this point. I don't know.
Look at another team, okay? Look at the Flyers. All right, so we got to talk about them for just a minute, because this is a team had huge expectations coming into the season. They made a huge coup and brought back James Ben Riemsdyk from Toronto.
Yes.
Okay? You thought that he'd be icing on the cake to what they did last year. They're in last place. They just fired Hextall, who was Mr. Flyer, okay?
Helped out the Los Angeles Kings a lot.
Didn't he score the first goal as a goalie? Who was it, him, or who was it that scored the goalie? I'm losing my mind
I
here.
don't know.
I think he
I know
scored.
Patrick Waugh scored it.
No, I think, no. And Chris Osgood was the second one, but I think Hextall was the first goalie to score a goal, I think.
Really?
I'm almost positive about that.
Well,
Anyway.
he doesn't have a job today. 'cause
Sean, can we
they
look it
fired
up?
him.
We look it up. But anyway, it's very rare you see a GM fired mid-season.
Yeah.
That's usually the coach but is a GM fired
You
mid-season?
see the coach get fired and the GM take over the coaching.
Right, or something
until somebody
temporarily,
can
right.
get in. Yeah.
But it's rare to see this move happen, so, was it that he couldn't really get a goalie for the team? Whatever the situation is, that team is on life support right now, and they gotta do something, but I don't know what, because it seems like they have all the players in line except for the goalie position.
Oh, I thought they had, I think it's actually their mascot.
Yeah, Ron
mascot is
Hextall.
a real problem.
First goal
Wait,
scored by
you
a
don't
goalie.
like Gritty?
Right?
Gritty
Right?
is, by the way, Gritty is my favorite
I
thing in
think
this
it's all
NHL
Gritty's,
season.
I was gonna say, it's all Gritty's fault.
I would blame Gritty.
No,
They
I
bring
think
Gritty
was
in,
the
they're in
worst
last place.
mascot
Whatever
we've ever
success
seen.
that team has had is because of Gritty. Gritty is the best new mascot going today. I wanted to be him for, I think it's a him for Halloween, but I couldn't. I wasn't in Philadelphia, so I didn't have
Oh,
the means, but
I just think
I love
Gritty is
Gritty.
the worst.
Yeah, he's.
I think what happens is the players look up in the stands and go, do we really have to have that thing here?
Yeah.
And it's
Thing
distracting.
is,
Are you
the-
blaming
Claude
this season
Giroux
on
can't,
Gritty?
he can't focus, and Voracek is like embarrassed, and so they're just having problems because of Gritty.
Yeah, I would agree, it's completely Gritty's fault, he needs to be run out of town with torches and pitchforks, and get him out. Yeah, I agree, by the way, I was
I
right,
like
it was,
Gritty.
Ron Hextall
The
was,
next time I'm here, I'm gonna have a Gritty shirt or something.
Full Gritty.
Ron Hextall was the first goalie to score a goal. So, thank
He
you,
was.
yeah, my hockey knowledge is still intact.
Well, he's also a GM that just got fired mid-season, so.
Now, what
is
does
he
that do also for him with his team, loyalty and maybe alumni games and whatever else down the road?
I don't know, but
Does he
he's
come
not
back?
gonna be happy.
No, I can't imagine he's happy.
But things aren't going well there, and they should be going well there. Look at how many high-level people have been fired this year.
Right.
Joe Quenneville's still looking for a job, he didn't have one yet.
I don't think he's looking, we saw the picture of him doing shots at the Bears game, I think he's
You
having
can
a.
look for a job and do shots at a
Well,
Bears.
maybe.
I think you can do shots.
But I think he's having a good time probably being away from it, being with his family probably for a little while, take a bit of a breather, and I guarantee he'll end up somewhere next year.
Of course.
I think he'll land on his feet,
I'm sure he's on his feet just fine. He's good.
He's got a little bit of a hockey prodigy behind him, so I think he's okay. But, again, could he end up in Philly?
Yeah, these guys, they shuffle around, and, did we hear today
Ken
something about
Hitchcock's and-
Pronger
well,
being
Ken Hitch-
promoted to?
No, he's not gonna be promoted.
He's not.
Pronger's not, it said there's an article that said not.
No.
But Ken Hitchcock ends up in Edmonton now, okay,
Yeah,
so.
seriously,
But
but they
he's-
must have pulled him out of retirement.
He was
to do that
retired.
job.
He actually lost a lot of weight, and he's healthy, and he's a good coach. He knows.
He's a great coach.
Very good coach. Just didn't have the support behind him, I think, as a GM and the brass in St. Louis. But I think he's gonna do really well in Edmonton. He'll know how to get these guys going. And listen, you got Connor McDavid, just scored his 100th goal. The guy's, 20 years old or whatever it is? You got guys like him, Draisaitl. They have a solid team. There's no
Well-
reason this team should not be in the playoffs.
So they are shuffling these coaches, and this Ken Hextall gets fired.
Ron Hextall.
I'm sorry, Ron Hextall. I was thinking of Hitchcock, but
Yeah.
I want to talk about Hitchcock and the Oilers.
Yes.
Because Jesse Cohen on Sunday night when I was on the All the Kingsmen podcast said something that I thought was very truthful, and he said, I think that hockey fans, this is Jesse Cohen saying this, hockey fans have a class action lawsuit against the Oilers for wrecking the first quarter of Connor McDavid's career.
Yeah.
Not giving him a team that could support him to do the things that he can do. And I think he's right, because I watched the Oilers play the Ducks on Friday afternoon, and then I went and saw the game Sunday night. And I gotta say, this Oilers team, for all the talent that they have, and they have loads of talent, they've got great defensemen, disorganized.
So is it a
AHL
situation,
team.
is it a situation like you have, where you have a bunch of stars on a team, a bunch of great players, because they're all much of them are number one draft picks.
Drysaitl's like amazing.
Right,
This
he was
guy's
the third pick overall, I think what it was, but you have a,
he's a sick player.
but here's my point though, do you have a bunch of top-notch players, but not team players? Because there's a difference. I'd rather have a guy that's gonna do all the intangibles, go to the corners, get the pucks, kill penalties, than someone who's a higher level pick, if you're not gonna play it as a team and mesh. There's something intangible about that, which is maybe what Vegas did. It wasn't one guy above the other. They went out and got a bunch of free agents, and now they're not playing as well. That happens,
Alright.
that's a phenomenon in sports.
Arash, what do you think about that? Do you follow the Oilers at all?
A little
Connor
bit.
McDavid's like the top player in the league.
Yeah, I'll give you an
supposedly.
example. So I'm in Vegas at the awards show, and Connor McDavid is walking the casino floor, and I'm like, this is,
He can't gamble though. I don't
the
think he told
second
me.
coming, Russ, right. He's like the second coming of like Wayne Gretzky, like the next great, and nobody knows who he is. And it reminded me a bit about Mike Trout, where he's technically playing in Los Angeles market, right? And no one, like, he's on a bad team. They're not making the playoffs.
That's
The
right.
one time that they did make the playoffs, they got swept. Just in a tough situation where he's so clearly the best player
He is
in the
the best
league,
player in the league.
but on a franchise and on a team that can't win, and it's so frustrating. So like you can see his individual talent on a nightly basis, but he's stuck. And when you can't see that kind of player shine in the playoffs and the postseason, that's really tough.
Oh,
It's
brutal.
so frustrating because you want him on a franchise that can compete, and you want love to see you play like in May and
Totally.
June,
I mean, it'd be amazing if
Yeah.
but he's on a multi-decade contract or something.
No, yeah, I mean, so
$20
you don't want him to
million.
leave. I mean,
he's
that-
not going anywhere.
Poor franchise has been through a lot,
No,
right?
he's there. He's in for good.
But now, so you got to figure out a way to turn the franchise around, whether it's a coaching change, whether it's GM or.
They just had a coaching
Well, they
change.
just
again,
did a
so-
coaching
I know. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
you're hoping that fixes things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It looked awful. I can tell you, just sitting there, the Ducks have nothing brewing, and they played even the whole time. And I'm sitting there looking at the Ducks, who've got a bunch of guys up from the San Diego Gulls
Yeah.
that are basically holding the Oilers and Connor McDavid scoreless
Wow.
the bulk of the game. And then at the end, and this is like classic Ducks fashion, they're like, oh wait, we're down 1-0, we're gonna lose, we better score a goal. So they score a goal to tie it up. That's how they kind of do every game
Yeah.
lately. And it's frustrating to watch, but they have enough talent that they can kind of muscle it out and stay in the game. And then they won in overtime with a Ricard Raquel overtime goal at 3-on-3. The Kings just blasted the Oilers. I mean, they played, and it was the first game the Kings put together in a complete manner where everybody was clicking. Carter and Kopitar and Brown and Doughty, everybody was on, and the passing was crisp, and they really bulldozed the Oilers.
Was that when Brown had his hat trick?
Brown had a hat trick.
Right.
Yeah, and Kopitar, really played out of his head. He played a great game.
Yeah, but it's still not, it's one game. That's not gonna go anywhere. The Kings are done. Stick a fork in it.
What about that core group, though? I mean, like all those names that you brought up that helped them win 2 cups. I mean, can they? If Quick comes back and he's healthy, and they bring in I don't know if they're gonna change coaches again or what the plan is. I mean, can you win with that core group, or do you have to just move on and?
It's a great question,
Yeah.
because that core group is, they've been around a
Yeah.
while, and are they, the guys that you can build a playoff bound team around? Are they able to do that? And they made one trade. They traded Tanner Pearson for Carl Hagelin with the Penguins. Tanner Pearson incidentally scored 3 goals since he's been over on the Penguins, and it does help to play on a line with Malkin and Kessel.
Yeah.
Not a bad line to be on, but I don't know what moves they can make.
Yeah.
They don't have room.
I just think if Quick was healthy, I think, listen, I don't think they go from being the worst team in the league to like a playoff team, but I mean, that just hurt them, and there's not, and in the past when they've lost Quick, the second guy who's come in has been great, but even Campbell got hurt, I guess, too.
Yeah, so they have this guy, Cal Peterson, who I think is actually like 17 years old or something. He is so young, and he's playing out of his head. He's doing great.
Yeah.
I actually picked him as player of the game on Sunday night because he really provided the backstop for the Kings to play the game that they are capable of.
By the way, that sellout streak that just got snapped, I don't know how long ago it was. I mean, I was happy to see that because for so long, like, Los Angeles was kind of like a maligned hockey fan base, and so for them to have that streak, which began prior to them having the cup, you just can't. So like, as long as you're rolling out the stars and you're competing, people are going to come out. But
just FYI, the fan base is still maligned.
it's still maligned, but like they sold out 300 straight games, so I can only just go back to that.
That's fine. And
I'll take 2 Stanley Cups in 3 years. For 3 trips to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, they've done
That's
very
fine.
well.
By the way, speaking of the Detroit Red Wings, and Nashville did this as well, and I get it for Nashville. Yeah. By the way, because you have enough Stanley Cups that like you could just hang your.
25 years.
What is with this regular season Western Conference Championship banner? It is the dumbest thing, and it's only in hockey. I've never seen it in. I've never seen it in any other sport. Where because you have the best record in the regular season in your conference, you're gonna hang up. They didn't win the Western Conference. Nashville didn't even get to the Western Conference Finals, and so for a franchise like Detroit to do that, Nashville, I'll give them a pass, even though that is ridiculous.
I think everybody does that.
It's a dumb tradition in hockey.
It is, but they've always done that, and they did it long ago, and they had the.
Do you guys agree with it? Because I just think it's the most ridiculous thing.
Listen, when you had you run the Norris division, Smythe division, Camel.
Exactly, they would
Camel Conference, and all. Yeah, they did all these special banners.
They did.
Listen, if you win the division, you get a banner. Congratulations. If you win but if you have the best regular season record in your conference, and then you get swept in the first
I don't
round.
disagree. It's just a tradition. I actually never.
We gotta end that tradition. Dr. Hockey end that tradition.
I don't know how we can end that one. That's a good question because that is a long.
I mean, Nashville.
This is the grassroots of it starting right now to get rid of it.
Here's the thing, because I was in Las Vegas. Nashville had a more extravagant celebration for the regular season Western Conference Championship banner than Las Vegas did for their actual Western Conference Championship banner. They just hung it, put the spotlight on it, and that was it. They just moved on.
Then that's what you should do.
You should do
because
that.
it's not the
especially a franchise like Detroit.
Not.
You can hang Stanley Cup banners. You don't need a regular season Western Conference.
They should have actually had somebody actually drawn and quartered in the middle of the center ice. That would have actually been more exciting, I think, than.
I've seen that at some soccer games.
It's true that has.
By the way,
has happened.
Real quick, it was redundant because they hung a President's Trophy, so you have the best record in the league. And then you gotta hang up a Western Conference regular season trophy?
It's a lot of banners. It's ridiculous.
It's the same thing as buying a T-shirt saying it's the ALDS, or playoff
That's
division,
fine.
game.
Yeah.
Who gets a T-shirt like that?
I make it.
I don't care. I don't.
Sometimes.
Or round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, I'm gonna get. When are you ever gonna wear that
If it's
T-shirt?
a memorable round 1 matchup, that's good.
Another team I want to touch on real quick is Buffalo. Buffalo has been worst to first. I mean, they're not in first necessarily, but they're in second place.
I know where they are.
They're in second place in the Atlantic Division. They made some huge off-season moves. They have Pominville. They have Skinner from Carolina. They have Ristolainen. I mean, they have Omark is a phenomenal goalie. They have made moves to give Eichel supporting cast to be able to get them to the playoffs and to do something that I am very surprised and pleased to see what they're doing this year. The other one who's actually made a big difference in them is Okposo. Used to be on the Islanders. I mean, this guy is a great player, goes to the corners, does a lot of the dirty work, and he's just a good all-around player, physical guy. And, listen, I watched him play the Wings the other night. It was a good game. We lost, but that's okay. But I watched the game also for how they play, and the way this team looks, and Dahlin obviously as their number one overall pick. Guy's 18 years old. He's running the power play.
Yes.
At the point now, I mean, this guy is gonna be something very special in years to come. He's a great skater. I mean, you watch this guy fly down the ice. You know what, honestly, Buffalo fans should be very, very encouraged about this. And my uncle used to live in Lockport, so I know the area really well. And, you know, they should be really excited about what they got going on there in Buffalo.
Well, I think Buffalo was on their way last year, even though they didn't wind up very high in the standings, they were putting the pieces in place.
No,
And
but
this
yeah,
year they came around.
They made huge
Yeah, they
moves in the
did.
offseason,
They
and
did.
it's paying off right now.
And
Good
House
for
is,
them.
he's really coaching them
House,
well.
yeah, he's a
done
great coach. Yeah, he's a great player, and now he's a great coach, and you don't see that often.
So, Arash, I got a couple of questions for you from a ESPN standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, how did you wind up getting this amazing like career that you have going with ESPN? How did you come into it?
They launched ESPN Los Angeles originally in 2009, and so I went there mainly to cover local sports, but then after a couple of years, I got the chance to do like a lot more than that. So I got to cover Super Bowl and the NBA Finals, Stanley Cup, and then we didn't have anyone in Las Vegas, so I kind of got to do like the Los Angeles to Las Vegas flight route, where I was like, it's a 45-minute flight or, you know, 6-hour drive or whatnot. And then so I got to do that, and what else have I gotten to do? While I was in China for the whole like Leangelo Ball, LeVar Ball show.
Oh, really?
I was there to cover the League of Legends World Championship because esports is coming on big and everyone's excited about esports, I think. So that's why I was originally there, but then I went to Shanghai to cover that whole. Well, I originally went there to cover the game, and then I ended up
fun.
staying there for the whole shoplifting.
Yeah, that was
story.
like
So that was a lot
unbelievable.
of
Who
fun.
shoplifts in China?
That's the thing. I don't get that. I mean, who
That's
shoplifts
not
in
wise.
general, but why
What
shoplifts
is
in
it, a
China?
shoplift?
Yeah. They went to a Louis Vuitton store, so what they shoplifted was very valuable, but still, we should shoplift.
Oh,
Why?
was it from a Louis Vuitton store?
Yeah,
Oh,
sunglasses.
I thought it was at a gas station where they roughed some guy up or something like
No,
that.
that's you're thinking of the swimmer in the
Yeah, you're
Olympics.
thinking
Oh, that's
Ryan
right.
Lochte.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Who roughs up a gas station in Rio?
Some dude with
some
bleached
guy that wants to
hair.
get shot.
Who the hell does that?
Do you know how many of
Oh
my
my
friends
God.
Who
in
shoplifts in
Brazil
China?
carry
Wait, who shoplifts
weapons on their person?
Wait a minute, hold on. Who shoplifts in China and then also roughs up somebody in a gas station in
They're
Brazil?
not connected. though.
I have no-
I agree.
It's the
They
same
should do
mentality.
either.
They're stupid. I'm sorry, that's pure
You
stupidity.
don't have to be sorry, it's hilarious. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sorry, they're not sorry, they're dumb.
I'm not sorry either. Yeah, it's totally stupid. You would not commit crimes in the People's Republic of China.
That's
This is not
100%
smart.
right.
They'll toss you in some
They don't
hole
care.
and there's
That's
no
right.
laws.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's it. You're gone. See ya.
I would agree.
But Shanghai's an amazing city.
Shanghai is amazing.
They
I
are
do
I'm
very
sure
into
it
hockey
is.
there too. They're very into hockey.
I'm
Yes.
sure it is, but you know, come on, use your head, guys.
Don't
You're-
steal.
Don't steal. Just go enjoy the city. Don't steal.
Yeah, it's an amazing
Yeah.
place.
I want to go back when I'm not like working.
You're also representatives
Yeah.
of our country when you're in a public eye like that. You do something like that, it makes everybody here look stupid. Don't drag us down. Sorry.
We can get you a personal meeting with the guys if you want. Maybe
It's
they
not
can use-
that, no. It's, I have a little byline here. I can't stand it when people do stupid things.
I think you should be allowed to slap stupid.
Not just stupid, okay, make a mistake, but knowingly do something stupid. Okay, let's get back to Arash. Forget it, I can go on for hours about this.
All right, good.
Let's get back to Arash.
I mean, I like how you can post a sign on the wall, and there's some comedian who says like, I like how you can put a sign up on your fence that says, no trespassing, violators will be shot on sight. You can put up a sign and make murder legal.
Yeah, as long as there's a sign, you're on warning, you're on notice.
Did you read this letter?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just put up a sign and say, guess what? So anyway, you got to do all these things at
Yeah.
the national level,
Mhm.
and then now I hear you on, not only on ESPN, but you like go around to like other shows a lot too, and you're a huge commentator. Like you're becoming, kind of the guy to talk to about what's happening in sports. And we should talk about USC.
Yeah.
Because I know that's going to hit a nerve.
Frustrating, yeah.
You're not the only one, by the way. Like 98% of the homes
know.
in my neighborhood
Are
have
USC
USC banners
yeah.
on them, and like you can hear things like breaking during the weekend during the games. It has been hard to watch. In fact, the chief of my division at USC, because I'm USC faculty, Mark Urata, I'll text him. I'll be like, "How are you doing?" Like, kind of like, "Are you
Yeah.
okay?" And he is not well.
I mean, you just want the team to compete, and so the issue was when you lose homecoming, and you lose to UCLA, and you lose to Notre Dame, and the attendance is the worst that it's been since 1960, which was John McCabe's first season, and it's like, 5-7. Like, I wanted to go to the Las Vegas Bowl. I like Las Vegas. It's not a top tier bowl. I want to go to the. I mean, the fact that they're not even going to
Something
the
about that
bowl.
$4 lobster.
I know. That's where I want to go. I want a work trip to Vegas because a work trip to Vegas is always better than a personal trip to Vegas. But to not even have that is frustrating. And then so to have the athletic director come out and say, we are going to stay the course. And so what happens is that they're going to fire the offensive coordinator and fire the quarterback coach and the defensive line. It's like, if the culture is bad and the team's not good and you're making no halftime adjustments, they have not done a thing in the second half of the season, the coach has got to go. And again, I like Clay Helton as a guy. I just don't think he's the right coach for this team. But as you know, the school doesn't have a president right now. So from what I've been told, not that this makes me feel good about it, hard to make a big change and a big hire without a president of the school, which they're going to get next year. So hopefully, not that I want them to lose next year, but he's on the hottest of hot seats.
I think so. And and a lot of those players too, my son goes to Modern Day, so
Yeah.
like a lot of those guys are, coming up through that system and I know there's a bunch of guys from his high school that are looking to be there next year, and I think they will be. But it's just been it's been a disappointment to everybody in Southern California. I mean, you got the USC.
Well, I don't think the UCLA fans are disappointed.
I think they are. They
beat USC, but it was one of the few games that they did win. They've not had a good
The
season.
UCLA team doesn't have a whole lot to celebrate here, so congratulations.
By the way, I give you a
but-
little bit of a thing that happens to me. So on my lead apron I use for doing my spine and pain injections,
Yeah.
I went to Michigan State, and I have a little emblem of the Michigan State Spartan helmet.
Yeah.
And a lot of my patients will say, "Oh, you're USC?" I said, "No, it's green. USC's colors are gold and red, and it's
Upset at
Spartan. It's not even close."
They don't even know what Michigan State is here, dude. Like
By the way, you
you're
guys
out of your
travel
league.
so
here.
well. When you guys played in the
The
Rose
team's
Bowl.
terrible this year.
I know,
the
but
team's
not that you're
terrible.
gonna go to the Rose Bowl. When you guys did go to the Rose Bowl, I was like,
I was there.
how many Michigan State people are this?
It was a lot of
incredible.
fun.
Yeah.
State's legit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm surprised how many people are so clueless about,
Yeah, they
again,
shouldn't be.
stupidity, about the fact that it's
You're about to like
different school colors.
inject someone, and you're really.
No.
Stop
No.
it. I'm just joking.
It's just
Not
the
a
fact that someone's a
Trojan.
USC fan. What about a green helmet indicated USC?
Listen,
I don't
if you want to
understand.
get an injection from this guy, you got to come in and be like, "I love the Red Wings." And
No,
Exactly.
I did have a patient that had a Bruins jacket. I went, "Oh, Bruins fan." He goes, "What are you?"
That's a great response. What are you?
Yeah.
I go, "Well, you're." I go, "It's a typical Bostonian response," but yeah.
Hey, if you're coming in from Arlington, you gotta. That's your team,
I have one of my patients who's a buddy of mine who I met from being his doctor, and he's from Chicago. He's a big Bears fan, Blackhawks, and everything else, and we go at it. But he waits till after the procedure is over with, or
Exactly
you know,
right,
it's like,
yeah.
yeah, that's just how it is typically. But no, it's fun. I like to go at it with my patients as far as with sports stuff. It's fun. I enjoy that.
Now, Arash, you are. How do people follow you? Because I know you're pretty active on social media. So
Yeah.
Can you give us all your handles?
The great thing is Arash Markazi. Some people like to make it funky or whatever. First name,
Easy.
last name.
Price
It's
is
on
right.
here. Yeah, on Instagram.
Instagram, Twitter.
yeah,
Because I've been
Facebook.
following you're on like a quest for like fitness and.
Yeah,
you're-
well, I gotta give Lauren a lot of credit for this. I mean, this is obviously something that I wanted to do for quite some time, but then it's sort of like, we were hanging out and kind enough to set me up with the gym that I go to, and the they have a meal prep service. So I mean, I have to adjust that when I go on the road, but I kind of know what I want to stay around in terms of calorie intake. I know what I want to do for my workouts now, and down 60 pounds.
60
and-
pounds.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
pretty cool.
That's not nothing.
That's not nothing. It's hard to do, but it's becoming a routine now. As I was telling you before, it's like the first 20 days you're like, do I really want to do it? But I really kept myself accountable, as you mentioned. I put it on my Instagram. I say, here's what I'm having for breakfast. I'm having some oatmeal, and here's what I'm having for lunch. Here's what I'm doing to work out. And so, and enough people have reached out to me and said, like, listen, you really inspired me. So I mean, when I hear that, I'm
Wow.
like, well, I can't now go to the hamburger joint and say, like, forget this, And I feel better too, and
I have a good recipe for a breakfast smoothie for you. I'll tell you about that.
perfect. So I'm always looking for this kind of stuff. Like, I have a calorie count, so that doesn't mean I can't like splurge a little bit,
Right.
right? And so But it's
Gotta
been
have fun,
good.
gotta live life.
Gotta live life, and so listen, like if I go to Vegas, I give myself one night to go out with my friends, but I'm
Right.
not, you know, I think before I just indulged all the time,
Too much.
and so, yeah, I got to 328, and now I'm down to, 268 was
Wow.
today, so yeah.
That's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, good for you, man. And I'm sure you do feel like
Feel
1,000
much better, sleeping better, you
More
know,
energy.
more energy, it's been great, which I hoped or thought it would happen, but, you know, the fact that it's just happening, and I feel good, you know, and so when I go home and I see like my mom and dad, she's like, oh my God, you look great, and so I'm happy that she's happy, you know, because for years she was saying, please watch yourself, and I was, and I don't know why, you know, sometimes you don't know why in life you kind of let things happen, but they did, and now I'm kind of on the right track, so.
That's
yeah.
great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And for your health, there's nothing
Oh,
better. I mean, because the biggest issue that people don't realize with, you know, being heavier than you
Yeah.
should be is your heart pumps against all that resistance.
Yeah.
And that's something that's just so like, you know, because I mean, I see people that are like, yeah, you know, I'm strong, I feel good, whatever. I said, but the thing is your heart's working all the time, and that's something that just is not well understood by the general public
Yeah.
of how
That's
tough
why
it
the
is
heart
for your
enlarges, it
circulation.
becomes less efficient as a pump, that's the issue.
And even that's the same for even, you know, these giant people, whether they're, you know, heavy or out of shape or whatever, but just the heart having to work against all that resistance is really tough, so it lengthens your life to be in shape and to be fit, so congratulations,
Yeah.
and it's a huge, you know, it's great for, you know, doing it for yourself, but the fact that you're inspiring other people is awesome. And
That is really cool.
That's very cool.
And that's why I really, so to keep myself accountable, but also kind of do it from day one and kind of
Yeah.
saying, you know, you guys have seen me on TV or whatnot, or seen me at games, and this is what I look like, but like, here's what I'm gonna do, and from day one to now, this was day 62, like, you and me are gonna be on this journey together, and at some point in this journey, if you wanna follow me, that's great, and I'm so happy that it didn't take something drastic for me to have this happen. It was just like, you know, and I've been really kind of public about certain things that I didn't think I was gonna be, like, you know, before when I would go on planes, like, I couldn't get like the seatbelt to fit, and so, you know, and that's something that you don't, I said, now that's not the case, and I'm breathing
Wow.
better, I'm feeling better, and so, and I've heard from a lot of people who are around the weight that I was, and saying, listen, you see what you're doing, and the fact that you're doing it, like, I can do it, and so that's been awesome.
And you just made up, it's just diet and exercise, being
Diet and
accountable.
exercise and accountable, and like really not having a whole lot of cheat days along the way. I know people have said, are you gonna take a day off? I'm like, listen, I can do 2 miles. It's like, doesn't take a long time to do that. And I can have a cheat meal here or there, but I'm not gonna do like a cheat day. I'm not gonna do it once a week. You know,
Yeah.
listen, I mean, if someone's having a birthday or a wedding, I'm gonna have some fun, but I'm not gonna go crazy. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Hey, Arash, I gotta ask you a question.
Yes.
What was the, about your hot takes? Gotta ask you the question.
Well,
I'm
it's a
looking at your
calendar
Instagram.
that my publicist might put out. That's getting, yeah.
Some impressive
Hot
pictures,
takes.
well, it's just impressive pictures on your, on your
I guess
Instagram.
I'm kind of known for my pictures on Instagram. Some people don't follow me for what I do. Is sort of the Instagram pictures, you know, like if you know, I'm Instagram models or whoever cheerleaders. Or,
Holy shnikes.
Yeah. So, doctors on the
That one.
on the Instagram now too. So that's
New bookmark.
nice. Yeah. That is a night at Manhattan Beach, Shellback, which I like to
You have a
frequent.
flower behind your ear too. What happened in that?
I don't know.
Maybe we don't wanna know. Disneyland, is it, then you're at Disneyland somehow next door, okay. I won't ask.
Alright, well, listen, it sounds like we gotta get down to Manhattan Beach.
Yes,
Party
you gotta
this
come to
time.
Shellback.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm very happily married, thank you.
A lot of hockey players, like not just half, like 75 to 80% of the Kings are there, so that'll be good.
Yeah, that is sort of the.
Oh, they're gonna be gunning for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You have like absolutely no leg to stand on in the Staples Center.
No, I told you I'm not going back
You'll
there.
get shelled.
I am not going back there until the Wings are, again, an elite team, and we can just crush the Kings at will. Like it used to be back in the good days.
Don't hold your breath.
The good old days.
Oh,
That's
trust me,
what
folks
happens
have,
anytime soon.
you kidding, the Wings have been one of the hottest teams in the league lately.
I know.
They're gonna be,
doing
listen,
better.
I hope they lose for Hughes, and then pick him first round. Within 2 or 3 years, I'm telling you, we'll be back, and I'll be back at Staples at that point.
Quick story, one of my highlights of my career is going to Detroit after the the Detroit Red Wings won, and a night on top of
In which year? I forgot.
Chili's
Somebody-
Chili, most recent,
Oh.
most
Oh,
recent.
wait,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
we beat the Penguins.
it's been 11 years now.
Yeah, it's okay.
But we were on top of Chili, and Kid
Yes.
Rock sat on top of the Stanley Cup and was playing the guitar. One of the highlights of my life.
No way.
Even though I wasn't a Detroit Red Wings fan, I could appreciate that moment.
There you go. No, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, the Wings have been a great,
Oh, yeah,
they've been a
amazing.
great franchise.
Yeah, and I'm glad I got to
we can't
Joe
take them
Louis Arena before it closed down.
Yeah, I never got to
It
Joe
was very
Louis.
nice.
Saw a guy passed out in the trough urinal once years ago.
Hey, the worst place to, you can pass out in a ton of places. but
He wasn't fully in, but kind of like forward.
Oh, no.
I think he was throwing up
That's
in there
the
at one point.
worst.
and
I
then that was it.
did.
You know, we have a lot of female listeners, they don't even know what the
Oh,
trough
so a
urinal
trough
is.
basically is what it sounds like. It's like a giant, what?
Tree
Like,
trough, it's the
it's
worst.
like, yeah, like bin.
Yeah, a bunch
And
of guys
everybody
like
stands up there
stand
randomly.
next to each other and like
And
pee
you're
in this
just
thing. It's the
pissing
worst.
randomly,
Awful.
and it's just, it's
So
terrible. It's the worst place to go if you have stage fright too.
100%.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
but,
I don't, that's not common.
but there was a guy that had apparently been throwing up, and he was almost, about 3/4 of his body was in the trough.
Oh, gross.
And,
Just the worst.
yeah.
That's just,
The only other place in Detroit, in a sporting event place, that would be worse than that, and my friend, this happened to my friend Alex, passed out in the bathroom at the Silverdome.
Awesome.
One of the most vile places on the planet.
it's just, you know, those kind of things like
Yeah.
require like a hazmat suit to
Yes.
pull people out of there.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
so contaminated.
But
and
no,
nasty.
Joe Louis was great, and
Yeah.
I went to the arena recently, it's fantastic.
Good.
Very impressed by it, yeah, I was very, very impressed by it, and, but, you know, listen, we'll be back. We have a great core, and I'm looking forward to what's gonna happen in the next few years.
Well, I mean, the Penguins are limping this year. I mean, they were contenders
But
last
remember,
year.
when they made the coaching change, and after they were limping, and then they came back and won the cup that year?
Yes.
You know, you can never count the Penguins out when they have Crosby and Malkin.
No, you can't count
That's
them
just,
now. I
you
mean,
can
for
never,
sure.
I don't care who's in their team, it's like Tom Brady could play with a bunch of guys from college and take them to the AFC championship game. That's just the way it is with some of these players. And he's done that with a lot of unknowns, guys don't even know their names, and he suddenly is still doing the same thing he used to do.
Well,
So-
you can even look back at your sad year that the Wings lost the cup in Joe Louis to the Penguins. In that,
Keep having to bring that up.
I'm gonna bring it up for a very specific reason though. In that fall season, in November, Marian Hossa asked for a trade in that
Right.
November because the Penguins were doing so poorly. He said, I'm not gonna get the playoffs, I can't win a cup, I wanna be traded to the Detroit Red Wings so I can raise the cup. You know, cause he said, I'm never gonna win.
Yeah.
And so they gave him the trade, they said, fine, get off this team. So he goes over to the Red Wings.
Hence
and
brings up one of the most difficult deals that came up with Ken Holland, is to sign Franzen or Hossa.
Right,
And
That's right, yeah.
they signed Franzen, who unfortunately has been left with some major head injuries, and I feel so bad for the guy. But from a playing perspective, and Hossa's out now, but Hossa had a few better years because he didn't have those injuries to deal with.
well,
But
and
that's
I
when,
would-
it's just still a source of contention. You talk to most Red Wings fans, what was the right thing to do? And I don't think it was the right thing to do at that point. They're both great players.
well, I mean, Hossa then, you know, if you remember, he lost that, and then that's when he
Yeah.
asked for the trade
To
again.
Chicago.
And he signed like a.
Well, I think he was
12
traded, I
signed
think he was
like
a free
12-year
agent.
deal.
He signed a one-year deal with Detroit.
1 year deal with
And
Detroit.
that was it, and he signed
then-
with Chicago. Once they signed Franzen, they had enough money left in the cap.
I know, but he then went to Chicago and did win 3
Yes.
cups. So, I mean,
Yeah.
he was I loved Hossa. I mean, I was so happy that when he was on the Penguins, and then, of course, he asked for that trade.
It's like a weird year though, like seeing all these like traditionally good teams, not.
Oh, yeah.
Chicago's in
Chicago,
last, the second
yeah.
last place
And all
behind,
the-
right in front of St. Louis.
But the coaches being fired left
Yeah.
and right, and the GMs and like, you know,
GMs, I thought.
But firing a coach is not always the wisest thing if you don't have the players to back it up.
Mhm.
How does firing a coach make a difference if you don't have good players?
well, they fired Yao from St. Louis, and I don't think he has
Mike
anything
Yale's
to
a
do
great,
with
Mike Yale's a great
that.
coach.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything to do with St. Louis's problems right
No,
now.
of course not.
I mean, I think they gotta do something, but, you know, it's, so, I don't know, we'll see. The big question, on Jason's mind is that, you know, Steve Yzerman, who is with Tampa Bay, was the GM, stepped down, was the assistant GM, and has now announced that this is his last year in Tampa Bay. Is, did you just squeal?
No, that was someone
The
else.
prodigal son's gonna come home.
That was
and
my chair.
Fix the.
So do you
That
believe,
was my chair.
is that the sign that he's going back to Detroit, or is he the guy they're gonna pick to head up this new Seattle team?
That's a great question. I mean, I think, you know, his heart would maybe take him back to Detroit. But the Seattle thing is such a, if you talk to George McPhee, it's the most invigorating thing because it's a clean slate. And it's not that you're just getting the picks. If you look at what McPhee did, you're making trades so guys don't pick certain guys, right?
Right.
So you're getting first round picks, so I don't take. So it's just a great feeling where you don't have to clean up
Right.
something, right? You can just start from scratch and
So cool.
pick who you have. And Seattle's such a great market. When you look at the way that they've supported their teams, and you go back to the Sonics leaving, and I don't know if that was like things have happened since then, but like the way that they support the soccer team, the way that they support their football team, and I know they're going to support the hockey
And the
team.
Mariners. And
Yeah.
just amazing.
So it's a fun community. It's a great city. So I think Detroit because of his heart, but I think Seattle of just like
Here's why I say
Clean
you
slate.
won't. Here's why I say you won't.
what?
Won't go to Seattle.
Won't go to
He's coming back to
Seattle.
Detroit.
Okay.
And I'm willing to bet you
Oh, here we go.
anything you want to bet.
You got
We'll do the Jersey thing again this year if you want. But Eisman, the second the season ends, Eisman's coming to Detroit. And here's why. He still has a house, he still lives in Detroit. He's been doing it and commuting to Tampa since he's been there.
Mhm.
Okay? And rather than going to Seattle, because he tried to accomplish the same thing in Tampa. He had the team, he was running the team. Why would he go to another franchise to do the same thing he did in Tampa? He's gonna come back to Detroit. He's gonna be basically a co-GM with Ken Holland, hit the ground running and take over when Holland steps down in 2 years. They signed Holland to a 2-year contract. You got this year and the next year. That's what's gonna happen. Market, November 27th, 2018, he's gonna do this. I promise you that.
What do you think?
I think he's going back to Detroit.
Oh,
Yeah,
but that's
I do.
not a bet. I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, well, yeah, you're supposed to disagree with your bet.
Exactly.
No, I
That's
can't
a
because
bet.
All right, we'll bet
You
then.
guys would take that bet, but I just don't think that, I think he's going back to
Okay.
Detroit. I think I agree with Jason 100% that his move right now is to get back to
Yeah.
Detroit. And
Makes
it's-
sense. Excited.
Dan, oh, sorry.
The second time.
My chair again, this damn chair.
It's just, it's sad.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, just every.
So who is the GM in Seattle? If not, like the assistant GM of Las Vegas, I heard was a candidate.
I don't know if they've named
Yeah.
him yet. I don't
No,
think
no,
they
no.
have. Yeah,
But like,
so-
I'd be curious who they think would be like the right guy for that job because it is.
Well,
it's-
where's Blysma? Dan
Miles
Blysma.
Money, he's an assistant coach in Detroit.
He's in Detroit.
Yeah.
So
And
I
what-
think he's.
And what do we think about,
Oh,
and what do we
John?
think about possibly maybe even Coach Q coming to,
Well, I think Coach Q's a high likelihood for the coaching
Yeah.
job there. There's a lot of
In
guys
Seattle?
out there right now in Seattle, but
It's possible.
I thought, yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Seattle thing is going to be huge. I mean, I think it's going to next year's going to be a.
So here's my
Great
question, then.
year.
Here's my question. Is the Seattle deal in the first year gonna be considered a failure if they don't equal
No.
what Vegas did?
No, nobody expects that.
Stanley Cup final is.
I'm just-
a
no,
must,
nobody
there's
expects
no
that.
way.
All you gotta do is win the Stanley Cup, then you surpass
You
it.
surpass things.
But there's
Here's
nobody
what.
that expects that.
If they become the Seattle Metropolitans, which is where they were back in the day, and the Seattle Metropolitans did win a Stanley Cup, I think like 100 years ago. In their first game, can they raise, hey, we won the Stanley Cup. It was 100 years ago, but you know, they have some Stanley Cup history in Seattle.
They do.
It was a long time ago, but
I
You
think.
raise a banner for whatever you want to raise a
yeah,
banner
a
for.
regular
We
season.
have the best hot dogs in the NHL, raise the banner for a hot dog, you know?
By the way, that's not the worst. I mean, there are some places where like longest sellout streak.
banner?
Staples Center has a Taylor Swift banner.
I saw
for the
that,
most
that's
sellout.
embarrassing.
That's
Totally embarrassing.
That shouldn't be up there.
It should
That's
not.
just- That's embarrassing.
That's
Isn't
it.
Gretzky's, like,
Springsteen,
number
Springsteen
there?
opened the Staples Center, there was no banner for him up there for that.
That's
Although
true.
he hated Staples
He hated it.
Center.
He won't go
He's
back there.
never been
Yeah,
back there
never gone back
since.
there.
Why? What happened?
He doesn't like, well,
Whatever.
because he didn't like the way they had the boxes, it was just, he doesn't like, he likes the old arenas, whenever he came back, when I've seen him,
You like
gosh, all
sports
these-
radio.
all the sports arena before he closed, he was the one to close it down,
Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, he likes the dump that jumps.
The dump that jumps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what he called
You
the
like Bruce fan?
Hey, yeah, well, I went to. It was
I
fantastic.
think it was like 180 something,
like
I can't remember.
go
what.
to
Really?
church.
Did you see that many?
Oh, yeah, you know that,
180?
something like that.
That's awesome.
You're a
More
lot of
Jersey
Jersey
than me.
Huh?
That makes you like by default, you're like a Jersey
Oh,
inhabitant.
yeah, I mean,
I can get the ruling on that one pretty easy.
I've been going since like probably 81, when,
That's awesome.
the second leg of the river
I
tour.
saw his Broadway show.
He played Joe Lewis, I saw him,
It was very good.
I saw it twice,
81?
yeah, I saw. Yeah, I was 12 years
12
old.
years old.
Yeah, October of '81. He played Joe Lewis.
Shit.
He played Joe Lewis's ass.
I'll tell you, man, that's.
Yeah, no, they played Joe Lewis Arena, and yeah, it was.
I mean, I'll call up Kristen Flannery, our skating in stilettos, and I think she'll give us the ruling that you qualify as a Jersey.
I married a Jersey girl too.
Yeah,
Although
I know.
I don't care for the song that much, but it's one of the
Yeah.
few songs I don't care for, but
Really?
Yeah.
And you don't like Jersey Girl?
it's just,
That's all right. Yeah, it's no, there's a zillion other great Bruce 2000.
Oh, I've been plenty of times with my elbow, I'll show you a few pictures of elbows on the stage at the Bruce show.
Oh, wow.
Matter of fact, I was at the special show where he played the Wild and Innocent all the way through from start, where I got to see Incident and Rosie. Now for my Bruce fans out there listening, they're gonna appreciate that. But also the first official River tour show.
Wow.
Or River show, when he did the River from start to finish. He said he would never do it again, but
Wow.
during Dancing in the Dark, I have a picture I'll show you of me at the show.
Courtney
During-
Kotska.
No, during Dancing in the Dark at the Wild and Innocent show, I was standing up against the stage, and some guy who was drunk came barreling through the audience, on the pit in the front area, to try to jump up on stage. So here's a picture, I'm there, I'm 6'7", at the time, this is going back almost, 2008, 2009, I was probably about maybe 230, 235 at that point, and he tries to get up on stage, and I'm like, I'm not letting this guy get up on stage, and I'm the only one there, because security wouldn't have been able to get to him. He's not getting to Bruce.
There you go.
Okay.
Default security.
So
Jason
the
Berkeley.
guy
Dr.
jumps
Jason
up, and I'll never
Berkeley.
forget, he jumps up on the stage, and I grabbed, he was wearing Uggs boots, I grabbed him by the right leg, pulled him back as he was
worst.
resisting, because he was a smaller guy.
Yeah.
Picked him up, and body slammed him on the ground, and
Yeah.
security took him and ran off, and the head of security came over and shook my hand afterwards, I talked to him afterwards, and he knew my name from then on, although I was probably on some kind of watch list anyway, because of my
Probably.
psychotic Bruce fandom. But,
Berkeley.
but it was one of my shining
He's
moments
gonna
as
be in
a
the front row.
fan/security guard at the Bruce show.
Slash roadie.
/roadie.
However, the guy probably deserved to be body slammed regardless
Because
because
of
he's
the
wearing Ugg boots.
Yeah.
Well, that's
It was
beside
the
the
worst.
point,
It was,
yeah.
like, can that business just go away? I can't stand those
Well,
things.
it was very
They're
strange, by the way, I was at a
worst.
petting zoo with my daughters a few weeks ago at the, one of the farms out in, whatever. Anyway, and a woman was out there petting a sheep wearing her Uggs boots, and I said, this is just disturbing.
What did the sheep
realize-
say?
Yeah.
Did
Give
the
me
sheep
back my
have something to
cousin,
say
I
about
said, give me
that?
back my cousin.
Oh, jeez.
You're petting what you have on your feet, isn't it
Awful.
disturbing? Anyway,
All right.
we got, she gets
We're gonna skip on.
petting zoo from Bruce, this is a very weird tangent.
So, Arash, what do you see coming for the, in not just in hockey? You know, we're coming up onto, the Super Bowl here. Obviously, you follow, you're a rabid sports fan,
Yeah.
so I thought my Steelers are gonna make the cut here. I don't know after last week, but what do you see happening in the big events that are coming up? I mean, we're gonna have the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Where is that going? Are the LA Rams that good?
Oh yeah, I think they are. I mean, it's going to be tough for them if the Saints have home field for them to go back to New Orleans and win in the Superdome. But I do like
Wouldn't
the
put it
Rams
past
a
them,
lot. No, I listen. That game was fantastic. It was 35-35 in the fourth quarter, and they couldn't close it out. I mean, the fact that they had to come back was kind of tough. But I'm picking the Rams and Chiefs, and I'm really hoping that happens because how great was that Monday Night Football game? And I was telling everyone that I was really happy for the community that they got that game here in Los Angeles. It was supposed to be in Mexico City. They couldn't get that field right. And just for them to kind of give all those tickets to the first responders and the firefighters and all those
Amazing.
people, and I mean, it was great to have that game, and it lived up to the hype. I mean, it was maybe the greatest regular season NFL game ever, and it was on Monday Night Football and the sold out Coliseum. It was fantastic.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And the
I was like,
Chiefs,
who's that guy?
Chiefs are
Middle.
amazing.
Yeah.
They're a great team, so I would love to see that as well.
That'd be fantastic.
I think that weekend I actually have a conference, facial aesthetics conference in Las Vegas, so I'll be there for
the Super Bowl. That is
if
a
I'd
great.
like to.
That's the great thing about like Las Vegas. Now that they have all these pro teams that are coming their way, it has always been historically. If you can't be at the Super Bowl, if you can't be at the Final Four, it's like you're gonna be in Las Vegas. It's like the next
it's
best
great.
place to be. It's an amazing place.
Yeah.
The thing about Vegas is you get there, the first day you get there, you walk into the casino, and you're like, oh, this is great, you got the jingling of the slot machines,
Yeah.
this is fantastic, I love this, and you hear people cheering. By day two, you're walking through, it's like, do another slot machine, get me the hell out of here. That's the problem, I can't, 48 hours, I have a time limit, I'm done.
The first thing I do when I get off that plane is I start drinking water. I
You gotta hydrate,
dehydrate,
yeah, yeah.
I just get.
You're like Johnny
I
Drama,
turn into like
run the
a-
valley.
That's right. As soon as he gets on the
Gotta hydrate.
You gotta hydrate. As soon as I get to Vegas, I like walk off the plane
Yeah.
and my eyes dry.
Yeah, you're,
Oh, yeah.
you're
Oh my god.
you're breathing in hot needles, it's terrible.
Give me some,
Yeah.
I need some water.
Yeah.
So that, and then in terms of the future for this season in hockey, I mean, I think it's early, but who do you think's gonna win the Stanley Cup this year?
Who do I think is gonna win this year? I don't know. I'm trying to think. It's such a weird season where the
It
guys
is
on
weird.
teams that I would normally pick to have a good.
And bear in mind, Austin Matthews is not coming back.
He is
Yeah.
not coming back.
Well, he is now coming
Oh,
back,
he is now.
very soon,
Yeah.
he's ready to go.
Yeah, he should be on the ice soon.
Yeah,
And the Maple Leafs have held their own
they're in third place right now in spite of, I think,
without him.
Now that's a city where if they won, I don't know what would happen. I mean, because they have just for them to make the playoffs and those crowds outside of
Oh, I know.
the arena. I
Well,
mean,
they-
if they just got to the Stanley Cup final, right?
Oh,
mean,
I
how
think-
fantastic that would be for the
people are
city.
gonna be jumping off the CN Tower. Yeah.
Nuclear missiles would be fired
Yeah.
off or
So let me
something.
go with Toronto just to say I want to see them. And we've seen a lot of crazy things as far as like the Chicago Cubs have won and the Chicago White Sox have
We
won.
need a Canadian
Boston
team
Red
to
Sox.
win the cup.
Canadian team. I will say this as a Los Angeles Kings fan. The Canadian team has not won since they called that McSorley stick incident. I will say this: Montreal Canadiens, 1993, last Canadian team to win. So congratulations for calling McSorley on the curved stick. I hope you enjoyed your cup. Have not won since then. I would like to see that streak break though, but that still pains me as a Kings fan that they didn't win that. I mean, if they came back to Los Angeles up 2-0 in that series, which they would have, love that.
That would have been a big one.
That would have been awesome. That would have been fun.
I don't think we asked McSorley about that.
I don't
stick
even know,
incident.
even on the phone, it would have been a
We
wise
didn't really
decision
talk
to do.
about it. We were on Skype, so we could have been safe. He could have just hung up.
I mean, I think he's probably talked
No.
about it so much, but
On no
he's-
level was that
We left
acceptable.
that alone. We just figured that was not a good topic, so we left it alone. But, yeah, I mean, I'd like
Yes.
Tampa Bay to win the cup.
Go back to he was gracious enough when they went to the Cup in 2012 to have a press conference, because I think so many people wanted to talk to him, so instead of doing like 16 different interviews, he had a press conference for that curved stick moment, because it was just
Yeah.
such a significant moment
was.
in Kings history, and people keep going back to it, and I think
I haven't seen it called since.
yeah, it's just such a
I haven't
in
seen it
that-
called since either.
and to have it called in that moment.
You see, I've seen
Kerry
goalies-
Fraser was the official, right?
Yeah, actually, I
And
get.
I talked to him for this story I did,
Yeah.
and when he was like, "That stick was beyond illegal." It was such a great
it was
quote.
so
It
illegal.
was like not even. It was just like it was like a U shape basically. It was so bad.
Well, in
But
that case, they should call it.
yeah, but nobody calls for it, and
But it wasn't the
stuff
type of thing that really most officials are
No,
attuned to looking at.
you would have to.
What's the curve of your stick? What's the curve of
Yeah.
your stick? I mean, that's kind of a personal question, but what's the curve of your stick? What's the curve of the stick? No one's gonna look around.
But it was
and
one
go,
of those
"It's
things where
sticks."
it's like you kind of keep in your back pocket for the third period,
They
close
knew.
game. They knew.
They knew someone was
But
going
it's
on.
like we're not gonna. It's like there's no need to bring that up in the first period.
I believe they saw him in the behind the scenes playing lacrosse with that stick too.
Exactly.
Or trap ball, one of the
That's
two.
sick.
That is that curve.
Yeah.
No, I know. Well, you know, it's, that was a significant moment in Kings history, for sure.
Yeah.
And that took the wind out of the sails, and it really hurt them badly, because then
They
it's not
never
another-
recovered from
They
that. It
didn't.
was a little
They
bit like the Vegas Golden Knights, where you win game one and then you just lose 4 straight, which I never thought Vegas would do. Like that, I thought they could lose to Washington. Washington was a very good team, but for them to win game one like they did, but it's always like these moments, right, in sports where one play, one save kind of shifts the series, and that's what happened in that series.
And it sure did.
Mhm.
Were you there for any of those
Yeah.
games? Oh,
I was
man.
there for all of them. It was crazy, and I'm really glad I was there when they clinched, because you felt sort of the pressure of that moment lifted when Washington won, and so
Wow.
when Ovechkin held it. And my only regret is I knew where they were gonna go when the game was over, but I was so tired, and I kicked myself for not going. But like, I could have gone out to the club with Ovechkin and Washington Capitals that night. I mean, what's the best place to clinch it? Well, you got to clinch it in Las
Vegas,
Vegas, right? It's probably Las Vegas or South Beach. I mean, those are the two places that you want to win.
South Beach is a good choice.
Because you got to go to a city that is like 24 hours basically, where you could be drinking until
Yeah.
like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Well, Vegas
Which
is a good choice.
they did. Vegas is amazing in that respect.
Manhattan would be a good place too. I think
Yeah.
you could find some good.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Well, the Rangers haven't seen that action in quite some time, so that's
I
not.
know.
We'll see. Maybe this year. Maybe this is the
You
year.
never know.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in to do the podcast with us. We'll definitely continue to follow your fitness challenge, and
thanks.
hopefully, maybe I'll join in. I got a big race coming up in
There you go.
in February. I'm supposed to run a half marathon with my wife, and she's gonna do it like it's nothing. I may wind up in
Yes,
the hospital.
I might
There's a good chance. There's a good chance I could run with an ambulance.
I gotta train you, I gotta watch you do a half marathon.
Yeah.
Exactly. You'll be drinking.
I think so. Maybe I got to get inspired. I've been watching, but it's amazing.
Thanks,
So,
I appreciate it.
congratulations on all your success. Thanks for bringing all your ESPN knowledge and your love of sports to the podcast tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And